The sun hung low over the cracked sidewalks of Maple Street in suburban Atlanta, casting long shadows that danced across the modest brick houses. Maria Gonzalez, a wiry woman in her late 70s, shuffled down the street, her two worn suitcases dragging behind her like reluctant companions. Her gray hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her face, etched with lines of worry and resilience, told stories of a life spent navigating hardships. She had just been evicted from her small apartment after falling behind on rent, again. The landlord, a stern man with no patience for excuses, had changed the locks while she was at the grocery store. Now, with nowhere to go, she was heading to her son's house, hoping for a corner to sleep in, even if it meant swallowing her pride. Maria's son, Javier, lived in a tidy two-story home at the end of the cul-de-sac. He was a successful accountant, married to Sophia, a vibrant woman 15 years his junior who worked as a nurse. Their life was comfortable. 2 cars in the driveway, a manicured lawn, and a calendar filled with brunches and gym sessions. But Maria and Sophia had never seen eye to eye. Sophia found Maria's old world ways, her loud prayers, her endless stories about Mexico, her habit of cooking pungent meals that lingered in the air, grating. Javier, caught in the middle, often played peacemaker, but his patience was wearing thin. As Maria approached the house, her heart pounded. She hadn't told Javier she was coming. The last time they spoke, he'd sighed heavily over the phone, saying, "Mama, you can't keep spending your pension on lottery tickets. You need to budget." She'd hung up, hurt but too proud to argue. Now, with her suitcases in tow, she had no choice but to face him. Javier was in the front yard, trimming hedges, when he spotted his mother. His face tightened, a mix of surprise and dread. Sophia, lounging on the porch with a glass of iced tea, followed his gaze and froze. "Javi," she called, her voice sharp, "is that your mom?" Maria stopped at the edge of the driveway, her hands gripping the suitcase handles. "Mijo," she said softly, her voice cracking. "I didn't know where else to go." Javier wiped his hands on his jeans and walked over. "Mama, what happened? Why didn't you call?" "The landlord," Maria said, her eyes dropping to the ground. "He locked me out. I have nothing, Javier. Nothing." Sophia stood, her arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Javier, can we talk inside?" she said, her tone clipped. She didn't wait for an answer, turning and disappearing through the front door. Javier sighed, running a hand over his bald head. "Come in, Mama. Let's figure this out." Inside, the house smelled of lemon polish and Sophia's lavender candles. Maria sat on the edge of the couch, her suitcases by her feet, feeling like an intruder. Sophia stood in the kitchen doorway, her orange dress bright against the neutral tones of the house. Javier paced, his frustration palpable. "Sophia, she's my mother," he said, keeping his voice low. "She has nowhere else. She has a gambling problem, Javi." Sophia snapped, loud enough for Maria to hear. "She's been bailed out how many times? We can't keep doing this." Maria's cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the plush couch cushions. But then, something shifted. A warmth filled the room, subtle at first, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Maria looked up, and there, in the corner by the window, stood a figure. A man in a white robe with a red sash, his face serene, his eyes kind but piercing. An arrow, crudely drawn, seemed to point to him, though no one else noticed it. Maria's breath caught. She knew that face. Every Catholic in her village back in Guadalajara did. It was him. "Javier," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Sophia, look." Javier frowned, following her gaze. "Mama." "What?" But Sophia saw it too. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. "Javi," she gasped, clutching his arm. "Do you see?" Javier turned, and his knees buckled. The figure stood still, radiant, a faint glow outlining his form. The room seemed to hum with an unspoken presence. Maria fell to her knees, her hands clasped, tears streaming down her face. "Señor," she murmured. "Am I Salvador?" The figure didn't speak, but his eyes locked onto each of them, Maria, Javier, Sophia. For a moment, time stopped. The weight of their frustrations, their resentments, their fears, hung in the air like a storm about to break. Sophia was the first to move, stepping forward, her voice barely a whisper. What? What do you want from us? The figure's gaze softened, and though no words came, Sophia felt a pull in her chest, a nudge toward the woman kneeling on the floor. She saw Maria not as the meddling mother-in-law who cluttered her home with rosaries and tamale steam, but as a woman who'd crossed deserts, buried a husband, and raised a son alone. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Javier, too, felt it, a clarity cutting through his exhaustion. He saw his mother's suitcases, the tremble in her hands, the pride she'd swallowed to stand here. And he saw Sophia, his wife, who worked double shifts to keep their life stable, who carried her own fears of instability, of losing control. Maria, still on her knees, felt no judgment, only love. The figure's presence wasn't about punishment or miracles, it was about truth. She thought of the lottery tickets, the moments she'd chosen hope over planning, the way she'd pushed Javier away with her stubbornness. Perdóname, she whispered, not to the figure, but to her son and Sophia. The glow faded, and the figure was gone. The room was silent except for the soft drip of iced tea from the broken glass. Javier was the first to speak, his voice thick. Mama, you're staying here. No arguments. Sophia nodded, wiping her eyes. We'll make it work. Together. Maria looked at them, her heart full. I'll help. I'll cook, clean, whatever you need. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, Sophia said, and for the first time, she meant it. She stepped forward, helping Maria to her feet. We're family. Over the next weeks, the house on Maple Street changed. Maria moved into the guest room, her suitcases unpacked into a small dresser. She stopped buying lottery tickets, instead channeling her hope into small acts, watering Sophia's herb garden, teaching Javier old family recipes. Sophia, in turn, sat with Maria some evenings, listening to stories of Guadalajara, laughing at tales of her own courtship with Javier. Javier, caught between them no longer, found peace in their growing bond. The figure never returned, but his presence lingered in the way they spoke to each other, in the patience they showed, in the love that grew where resentment once lived. Maple Street, with its cracked sidewalks and quiet nights, became a place of second chances, not because of a miracle, but because three people chose to see each other clearly. And somewhere, in the warmth of a Georgia sunset, Maria knew they weren't alone.